Welcome to One Queen, Two Kings, brought to you by RMK Productions and Network and 10 United Podcast Network, where we uplift voices with a platform to share stories, experiences, and perspectives using the framework of teaching, learning, and modeling. I'm your queen, your host, Marjorie Phoenix, and along with the two kings and other hosts, Kevin McLemore and Ray Porch, we bring you our 100 Girls with Curls series. Through this series, we have been highlighting young girls and women that are making a difference in the community. Today, we have the pleasure of interviewing this amazing young woman, Kellina Powell. Kellina is a young entrepreneur who loves to help people with their personal development and their personal growth. But she also wants to help and educate others about the deaf community. Little do people know, Kellina is a hard of hearing person. She became deaf at the age of 4, but she has just recently graduated with a psychology degree, and she is now launching her own online coaching business while finishing up her first book. Welcome, Kellina, to One Queen, Two Kings.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Definitely. Looking forward to this discussion. Now, I know you've already been interviewed by Kevin on Talking with Kevin and Son. So you guys have some history there. And so this will give Ray and I a chance to get to know you a little bit better and this audience for One Queen, Two Kings. But I have been following you, Kellina, on Instagram. And for those of you that want to see what she's up to, you can follow her at Deaf Queen Boss. She is there demystifying ideas and beliefs around deafness and disability. And I love this so much. I love the way you are really empowering that specific community. Because when you think about it, just like, any culture or language or biases, and just from not being informed, right? All of those things, they affect how we communicate with one another. And that's what it comes down to. So tell our audience why this is so important for you, that you wanted to make this your personal mission and your work.
That's a really great question. Communication, everybody needs communication every day. Like for example, myself, I grew up in the hearing community and there's a lot of lack of information, education on communication, especially someone who is deaf. It's super hard because it's not an easy topic to talk about. And for me, when I was growing up, I didn't have the support that I thought I would have from the deaf community. And it's just because there's so many lack of community there out there for the deaf community. And this is why it's super important, because I want to uplift those who are in need of support and learn how to communicate with someone who's hearing, because when you walk around the street, 99% of someone who is hearing is actually a hearing person, not a deaf person. So this is why it's super important to learn how to communicate with one another, even if they're deaf or not. It's super important to learn how to communicate, because every day, everybody's communicating 24/7.
Communication makes the world go round, for sure. Ray?
Wow. So my name is Ray, and it's a wonderful pleasure to meet you. So thank you so much for spending time with us. And I can't help but think, as a dad, how proud I would be of my daughter if she were doing what you were doing. And I think a lot of times, young people can take a lot of things for granted. And I think that, communication is certainly something that's really super important in our society today with the challenges that are happening around us every day. So I am grateful that we have you in our communities doing that communication work, because it's important. I guess the question that I would have for you, though, is how have you seen, or what's been the impact of the work beyond the deaf community, that you're out here doing this great work And how's that resonated with people who are, you know, who are not deaf? You know, how have you seen the impact grow as you've been on this journey?
That's a really good question. For me, how I started the whole journey is actually from Clubhouse, and I actually met a lot of people on Clubhouse. I would actually teaching people on Clubhouse how to run rooms, because you know there's not just myself who is deaf, but there actually are other people who actually deaf are using it. And I came up with a strategy, and I said, hey, like before someone speaks, say my name is Kalina speaking, and when they're done speaking, say I'm done speaking. So that way we can follow the conversation, because someone who is deaf, conversation is really hard for us to keep up with. And so that's where it all started, actually, was from Clubhouse. I didn't really think Clubhouse would take me this far to meet Kevin, honestly. And so it was really, I was like, oh, wow, okay, cool. So that is something in that, yeah, so that's how it all started.
Yeah, you know, it's amazing to hear her story, and we haven't heard her story. And I just wanted to make sure our listeners, when you're listening to this, there's nothing wrong with your audio, because Kalina uses an appliance. There's a little bit of it, I call a little bit of delay. So I want you to be patient. I know her story, but people don't know the story from the beginning, because I know when I first reached out to Kalina, the first thing I asked, I says, wait a minute, you're the deaf queen boss, but we're having a regular conversation like everyone else. And she was like, yeah, right. And I wanted to know how, but there's a beginning to this story, and I know her boyfriend is in the room and holding the camera. So I tell your cameraman to keep it still. But if you could share with our listeners, I'm going to ask you two questions. Share with your story, and then explain to them the biases that go on. We go through a lot with race and weight and how we look and sexual preferences and so forth. But this is not a conversation we have every day. So if you can enlighten our guests with giving a little background to where the story began and why you're so passionate to being the deaf queen boss. I mean, I know how you brought it on talking with Kevin and Son. Now you are amongst 100 Girls with Curls. Go ahead and tell them your story. Rock it, girl.
Thank you so much, Kevin. So it all began when I was 4. I went through daycare. I was normal until I had an ear infection, and my doctor told my mom to give me an eardrop. And so when I went to daycare the next day, I don't know what happened to this day. Either 1, they put too much eardrop for me, or 2, they put the wrong timing. And when I went home that day, when they give it to me, the next day when I would say the same day when I got home, my hearing just dropped. I was in front of the TV and I couldn't hear anything, and I was looking confused. And my mom came and tapped my shoulder, and she's like, Kalina, I'm calling you. And I was like, huh? And I couldn't hear my mom at all. So my mom thought I was joking. And I'm like, no, Mom, I can't hear. And she's just like, okay, no, this is not right. So she called my grandmother. My grandmother, luckily, she was a nurse. And so my grandma tried to call me on the phone. I couldn't hear anything. My grandma was panicking. She was yelling at me on the phone. I'm like, Grandma, get here. And I was crying because I don't know what's happening. And so my grandma rushed home. She saw me and she's like, wait, she cannot hear. And then the next day, went to my family doctor. They said she lost her hearing. So that one day alone, just like my hearing just dropped that one day from the eardrop and also from the daycare. And that's how it all started. And when I went to school, elementary school, that was really a mess for me. I would bully like so many times. And my mom actually decided to take me to a deaf school. So kind of mixed it up for me. So being in a deaf community and a hearing community. So that was really thoughtful of my mom doing that, because it actually helped me to learn how to communicate with 2 different communities, which was really cool. And from there on, I guess for me to understand where I come from, why do I have my deafness? Why do I have it? How do I communicate? How do I do better for myself? And so when I got older, it got better. Being in school got better, but however, I was still bullied. And when I got to high school, it was so much better. But I realized there was so much lack of education, to the point where my teachers thought I was taking advantage of my accommodation. And I was like, what? No, I just said I can't hear. And so it was like a lot of misunderstanding. So I actually literally started from school. And then now that I'm graduating, and I went to university, they were 10 times better. Professors were so much more accommodating. People were so much there for me. And so it literally all started because there was so much struggle that I had to go through an education system. True, there's so much lack of information on communication, someone that is deaf. So I had to continue always help other people like how to communicate with me. So that it all started, and I said, you know what, let me just make a difference in the deaf community, help those who need help to interact with the hearing community, and actually teach them how to do it. So that's where all started.
Wow, that's amazing, girl. You're a strong young woman, and you talk about, going through school, having this disability, and in some respect, there's not, the space isn't equipped, to support you. But then, there are some instances and some institutions that were, and it makes me think about, and this is when I announced that we were going to be interviewing you, that about the American Disabilities Act, right? And, they just celebrated like 30-year anniversary. And it's supposed to be there to protect people with disabilities, right? It's their right to equal opportunity and economic self-sufficiency and just equality in every aspect of their life. Do you believe that they've lived up to that? Or is there more that they could do?
I would say there'll be more towards it. I don't really use the Disability Act a lot of time, I guess because no one didn't bother like looking into it. Like for example, I quit a job at the grocery store because my boss would not accommodate her, and she didn't even she knew I was deaf. That's the joke. And I fully told her I couldn't hear through the max because I'm a lip reader, and she literally just discriminate me a lot. Like she would get mad at me if I didn't listen or if I didn't hear, and I said partying, and she would just be rude. And I was like, what? And she was, yeah. So I wanted to use that again, and I showed it to her, and I said, listen, everybody who have a disability accommodating, and if you're not doing that, then I guess I should quit, right? And she's like, no, you shouldn't quit. And I said, you know what? I quit. I had enough. That's not fair for me just to sit here and struggle at a job that's not going to accommodate me. So yeah.
That is so interesting you would say that, because you would just think, empathy and communication would have solved that issue right there. So I understand completely what you were saying. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. And so can I just continue to compliment you, because I love your smile. You are beautiful. And I think that one of the big things for our young people who watch this interview, what you're modeling is courage, incredible courage. And so thank you again for that. As you live in the world, we need that, and so my question would be, as you started to do this work, you're actually on a path to create more solutions for others. And so while you've been working with others in the deaf community, what has been inspiring for you? You're inspiring us today, but what's been inspiring for you?
What is inspiring for me is when I'm watching the Grammy, and the actress, I forgot her name, but she's actually a deaf actress, and she was signing during the Grammy, and that was something that inspired me so much to realize that we're finally getting our communication and resources that we need to teach hearing community about the deaf community. And I was like, oh my God, we're almost there. So I feel like the more people can learn how to advocate for themselves, especially those who are deaf, that is definitely inspired me a lot. Bringing all of the deaf community with me, that is something that's really inspired me.
It's terrific.
I'm glad you phrased it the way you did, because I was just in a Clubhouse room when they were talking about the change in Hollywood today. It used to be up until recently, till the Me Too movement came along, the All Boys Network, and just being able to accept abuse in order to have a job has changed, as well as the education system. We now have people like Ray that's in a position to teach diversity and equality, and we talk about building a legacy. But we also have these biases that people don't even realize they have. And I know everyone on this panel has experienced it. I know the one question that I always say, what are you thinking when they ask this? They always say to Kevin, you don't talk like the rest of them, okay? You're different, all right? I know I asked this before, all right? I want you to tell our audience, what is the dumbest thing someone's ever said to you?
Okay. I would say, okay, just one question or two? Can I
You can answer as many as you want. I can make a list, Ray can make a list, Marjorie can make a list, because people don't understand when they meet us and we're at that level that we're bringing up people and inspiring people, they get a little confused. All right.
Okay.
So go ahead,
Okay.
run that list off so people don't make a mistake anymore.
Okay, so the dumb question I get is, can deaf people drive? Yes, that's one of the dumb questions.
Are you serious?
I swear to God.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, and the second question I get is, what was it? It was something, I forgot what it was, but this one I told you, Kevin. I think it was the one I said, there's so many of them. One of them is that, how you're so pretty to be deaf.
I think someone asked you if you can have a boyfriend. Remember when we talked about that?
That was the other question. There's a lot of dumb questions. There's like 20 dumb questions I get, but those are the top two. That is a really dumb question I get.
That's hysterical. Oh my God.
This is what I talk about, the uninformed, I'm not even gonna say ignorance, but the uninformed when it comes to different types of disabilities, that people would come up with these types of questions. It is crazy. I mentioned to Kalina that I, for my foreign language, when I went through college, was ASL. It's a beautiful language. You're using your hands, and I really wish that I would have continued practicing it. And I actually believe that we all should be. I mean, I know we try to learn Spanish and French, but that language right there is something that is definitely needed, because there's not enough restaurants and stores in different places that have, employees that know ASL to be able to, communicate with their customers. So, that would be my recommendation to people, is to really try to learn some ASL if you can. It's really not that difficult. But let me ask you, Kalina, are there any resources that you could recommend for those, in the deaf community that would be helpful?
I highly recommend for people to search in their area, the Association of the Deaf. I know that one. I think that one's in the States, and then I know a lot of them in Canada because I'm located in Canada. But I know in the States they have this one big company that did with like the deaf community strictly, but you have to really look into your area and look it up. And the second thing I highly recommend, especially resources for parents, because I know parents are struggling a lot of time looking for resources like my mom did. My mom was a young mom when she had me, so she was struggling a lot. I would say look up as much resources you can around the area. There are going to be a lot of them. I know people have been like, there's none. They're going to be. There's got to be something. And so, yeah, so that's my top resources for people to do.
And the last question I'll ask you is, have you found in this work that you're doing as an advocate, because that's what I think of you, you're an advocate. Have you found that in your connections and the relationships that you're building, that people are seeking you out more, whether it's in your Twitter account or social media? How's that been going? Have you been feeling a lot of, a lot of the vibe come back like we are like, wow, she's doing this incredible thing. And so how can we be down? How can we support it? How can we learn more? Are you feeling that starting to, take hold as you go through this experience?
Of course, of course. My DM is going crazy, like nonstop, especially Clubhouse. People reaching out to me saying, hey, can you help me moderate a room? Even parents that actually reach out to me about their child, like, hey, I need help. I have been on 3 different conference calls. I just finished the hearing at the conference, and next week Saturday I have a big conference for the Deaf of Canada Association. So that is the big deaf community for Canada alone. So that is next week Friday. So that I allow them to reach out to me to speak and everything. So yeah, it's been a lot of journey, and the journey just started for me.
That's fantastic. What part of Canada are you in?
Toronto.
Toronto, beautiful place.
Oh yeah, but a little while sometimes.
Now, Kalina, we've talked a lot about your life. We brought your story to the forefront. We talked about some of the issues and our listeners. And I know the 3 of us know that you're working on a book. I don't know how far you've gotten into it. I have not talked to Monique Wells to see what the conversation after our interview had happened. If you can tell our listeners and your fans, which are now ours is yours, about your book and why you're writing this book and why it's so important that a book like this exists. If you don't mind sharing that with us, unless there's a big secret in there, and tell your cameraman to hold it still.
No problem, Kevin. My book, it's mixed with poetry and biography. So it's going to talk about my personal experience in the deaf community, the hearing community. And the reason why I'm writing this book is because there are actually no deaf books out there, unfortunately. So this is why I'm willing to make the changes and actually come up with my book and write about my personal work. And then the second thing is I want to write a children's book. That's something really important for children, because I want every children to know that, yes, they are different, but it doesn't mean they should stand out.
Well, you're not actually different. You actually have a gift that God has given you that we have to adjust to. And that's the reason why learning and understanding and having compassion is so important. So you're not different, you're special. Just remember that.
Listen, you are an absolute blessing, to us and to many, many others. And I think to Kevin's point, this is more of a comment than a question, is that how we think is how we learn. And so you are always challenging, this notion of what it is to communicate and what it is to want to connect with others. We have a fixed mindset about what that is because we take a lot of our senses for granted day in and day out. And you've had, an experience where that's changed and others have as well. And so you are doing a service to us all in that, like, we're having to refocus and rethink what it means to connect with people as we live in this experience. And so please continue to be courageous. I am so grateful I got a chance to meet you. I'm going to be following you and the work that you do. We will elevate your voice through this interview. You've had other interviews. I had a chance to listen to your other interview, and the experience with the child who saw you with your hair up and you rocking your hearing aid with fashion and style. So just blessings, and thank you so much for sharing yourself with us and many, many others. I really appreciate you and your courage and your wonderful commitment to others.
And I'm going to go out of turn right quick because Ray just opened up another business opportunity for you. You need to make some hearing aid with some bling. All right, go with this style. If you can't hear me, you got to be able to see me. All right.
You see her eyes? She's like, say what? Okay.
Oh my God.
Jump on it, girl, before this podcast drops and somebody else grabs that.
Yeah. Hey, the one thing is, it's an honor I speak for my two partners, my brother, my sister, to have you as one of the inductees to 100 Girls with Curls. I mean, you know, the whole premise behind this is to uplift, to inspire, to support. Ray and I do it to our queen, our sister. I know that you have a dynamic young man that's standing, holding your camera, trying to be still behind you, trying not to make it on the camera. Your king behind you. So tell him I said, hey, he's supposed to be on camera, so he can peep around here. So no one ever asks you that dumb question, how do you, is it hard to get a boyfriend? Tell him, just tell him, say, when you look like me, it's hard to keep them away.
Oh my God, that is awesome. Listen, Kalina, before we close up, tell everybody where they can find you, what you're up to, events, products, business, all that good stuff.
Of course, everybody can find me on my Instagram, DefQueenBoss, my website, KalinaEmpowerment.com, and third thing, Twitter, Cutie Kalina, I know. And I would say finishing up my book, that's number one. Number two, I'm finally gonna start launching my coaching business. And third thing is I want to actually open up a course for people to learn how to be inclusive. And now myself, learning ASL, I'll be having a course with ASL as well to teach other people how to become more inclusive, especially with ASL. And that's the only thing I've been doing. So.
Love it. Love it. That is awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing time with us. Listen, we've covered so much information, and I hope that our listeners at this point in this episode, you've learned something new about the deaf community, about disabilities. And if you enjoyed this episode, we invite you to share with your friends and your followers. And if you don't want to miss another episode of One Queen, Two Kings, or any of our other shows here at RMK Productions and Network, like Talking with Kevin and Son and Storytime and Wine, you might want to go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel or follow us on Facebook and Instagram at RMK Productions and Network. And you can also visit us at rmkproductions.net. Until next time, be the change you want to see in the world. And we're done.
So, Kalina, I have a question for you. So
sure, what's the question?
Would you be interested in speaking to high school students or middle school students about your journey? I am an assistant superintendent in a public school district in the Northeast of Massachusetts, here in the States. And so if we could coordinate together and get you on during the school year, whether, you know, virtually with a group of our young people, would you be interested in doing something like that?
Of course, of course. I would love
Awesome.
to make a change for the next generation. That's super important. That's my important thing too.
Awesome. Well, I have your contact information. And so maybe October, November, we'll get you on with a group of our young people and just share with them what you've been doing. And, you know, that, you know, you're going to be by then, hopefully, fingers crossed, a published author, and just talk about this work, you know, because I think the inspiration that you bring is infectious. You know, you've got this wonderful energy about yourself, and just this wonderful, vibrant courage and love of what you're doing and wanting to, you know, make change. So I think it's always important for young people to be around other young people who have that gift, which you certainly have. So I will definitely be in touch with you in order to get that done.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I am looking forward to it. Thank you.
Yeah, Ray, just make sure I don't have to follow her, because after her, I'm nothing.
So, Kalina, we would love for you to just share real quickly, as part of the promotion for the show, your experience as being a guest on the show today, in just a few words.
The guest on the show is amazing. Nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with it.
You just celebrated how much you enjoyed us. excuse me, it's Kalina Powell. Come to Storytime and Wine, or come to One Queen, Two Kings, or Talking with Kevin. I so enjoyed this. I can't wait to do it again. I'm going to tell my friends. Am I helping you out a little bit? Let's do this again.
Let
I
Kevin
would
coach
love to
you
do
through
this
it.
again.
All right, go ahead, do your thing.
Oh goodness. I was nice meeting all of you guys, and I'm super excited to meet you guys, and I'm super excited to look forward working with you guys in the future.
Right.
All right.
Thank you, Kalina. We
Take care,
appreciate
Miss
you.
Queen.
Thank you, Kalina. We appreciate you. And I'll be in touch.
Okay,
Congratulations.
for sure.
Congratulations.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.